Alright guys, today we'll be adding some chrome rings to the SL cluster my R129. This process is pretty much the same in the W140 S class. This car is a 97, so part of the facelift 1, but the facelift 2 introduced in 99 with the M113 V8 had chrome rings around all the dials, which I think looks really nice, and it will be a nice addition to have in this car. So we'll be popping this cluster out and doing this. It shouldn't take very long, pretty straightforward as long as you're pretty careful overall. First things first, removing the actual cluster itself. Disconnect the battery if you can. It's better for the car if you do that. You don't have to necessarily, but you might have some errors in the cluster, more errors in general. So I'd recommend disconnect that first, which mine already is. Now to remove the cluster itself, people usually say to use some special tools and pry on the outside. I personally prefer to just take off the kick panel down below and just kind of reach my hand up and just push the entire cluster out, which will give you access to all of the connectors and such. You should also note your steering wheel should be pretty much all the way out to give you access, because if it's not, the clutch will be kind of stuck in place. I find that reaching to the left side is typically a better tactic. Ignore the fact that my parking brake handle is missing, and then my steering wheel needs to be replaced. We'll fix that later. But for now, see, I've pushed it out slowly, can kind of reach up here and pull it forwards, and now I can access all the connectors right back over here, which come out pretty easily. With the two connectors, you have to push a little tab at the very top, which can unlock this slider, which, as you can see, if you push it forward, connector comes right on out. We'll do the same on this side over here. And now the cluster is free. So these cluster rings are pretty much available anywhere. These are the chrome variety. You can get a silver sort of finish that's not chrome, but I chose the chrome finish. I think it's just more fitting for this era of car. These are off of eBay, pretty generic packaging, but pretty cheap as well. And I think this should be pretty straightforward. If this goes well, I'll probably do the same thing in my E39 5 Series for a similar look. This is pretty dirty, as you can tell, so we'll clean this up while we're here. Do not break this. This is very expensive. If you break it, you gotta buy a used one. It's still pretty expensive either way. But taking this off is actually pretty straightforward. What we have to do is first remove these sort of strips that go through here. You can see this little tab that sticks out right over here. Just use some pliers, can take those strips out of plastic easily to remove this front cover. Once we have those off either side, you can see over there as well. If we flip this over, we can of course see all the bulbs, which is a good time to change them. The backlights for all of the errors and all that. This is for the center displays as well. Up top, there are some two tiny T10 Torx screws. This guy and this guy. I believe we only have to change out these top two, the ones that kind of go between the back of the cluster and the sort of frontal area. And once that's out and these tabs have been removed with all of the graphics for the error messages, error lights rather, we can then kind of pry them apart by using these tabs very gently. Of course, this is 30-year-old plastic more or less, so best to be gentle. So we'll do that, and then these rings should snap on in. I have seen some rings that are glue-in, but those just seem a lot more complicated, and these snap-in ones seem much easier. I would recommend using gloves when handling the internal components of the cluster, because fingerprints will show, especially on chrome, and it's near impossible to get fingerprints off chrome without leaving a scratch. So, at least chrome plastics, that is. So we'll be very careful doing that. Also, the same applies to the inside of the cluster glass, which is just that plastic pretty much. Be very careful cleaning that if you choose to, because you might leave behind some things you didn't mean to. So let's get started now. There we go, that's one side. Second side. By the way, I did put some cling wrap on the front of this just to make sure the plastic didn't get scratched. It still pretty dirty behind this, but didn't want to add anything new. So we just got those screws out. Now we can actually start prying at the sides and slowly get this thing apart. I began lifting at the very top of the cluster first, just a little bit to see where kind of the pressure points were. And as I did that, I noticed that the pressure is sort of on the very edge at the bottom, so I released those tabs. So yeah, super straightforward and not at all challenging. It looks like this cluster has not been opened before because it has the original stickers over here, which will break when you open this. I think it's sort of like a tamper-proof thing. I actually thought this cluster might have been replaced in my car, but it looks like this is the original one, as the numbers do seem to match. So that's pretty cool to know. We can take off the rest of these tabs now and get this front cover off. So with these two portions separated, we will actually be working on that side over there, as the bezels for the cluster are actually built in to this sort of front cover plastic piece. So we can see here, this is how we'll be installing the rings. You install for the back of that sort of plastic bezel, and then we'll put these in pretty simply. Well, folks, there we have it. Could not be happier with how this turned out. I think it looks really, really cool. It adds a layer of depth that just was not there before. I'll put this light on to give you guys more of an idea. But I like the way the lights of the cluster just bounce off the chrome. I think it looks really, really good. I think in the daytime, too, looks super nice. Just add some details which I think are nice and what a welcome change. It's a good thing that they actually added this in the facelift cars 998 Plus. I think it was a welcome one. Well, with that being said, guys, that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. As I honked my horn accidentally, that was kind of funny. But yeah, see you guys in the next one.
You think, oh yeah, it's a soft top, it shouldn't be that heavy. Well, that actually wasn't so bad this time, but the first time I was surprised. And I just kind of have to tuck away like so. Now I gotta say, I cannot imagine that this is actually good for the soft top.